I was going to shoot it out. I was going to commit suicide by cop that night. And I'd come home and my mom's car was in the driveway, but mom wasn't home. And every time I couldn't find my mom, I missed the rapture again. I am very well cared for. I'm very well loved by people, except me. God may not be done with me, but I am.
Most conversations about faith stay on the surface.
Or they just don't happen at all.
And that's the problem.
This is Back Row Revival.
Three guys
Figuring things out in real time.
I'm TJ. I'm not interested in the easy answers. I want to know what actually holds up when life gets hard.
I'm Bucky. I tend to say what people are thinking, even if it makes things a little uncomfortable.
I'm John Mark. I care about truth, but I also care about understanding how we got here in the first place.
No scripts.
No pretending.
No acting like we've got it all figured out.
We talk about faith.
Doubt.
And the stuff most people avoid.
If you've ever felt like you don't quite fit,
Like you're sitting in the back row.
You're not alone.
Back Row Revival.
Well, so how do we begin here?
We've already begun, really.
We have.
Good opening right there.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking in our conversations over the past couple of days and during Mark's when we were recording this episode, about how much different my upbringing was from the two of you. Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't raised in a pastor's home, and both of you were. And I think I'm probably the first pastor/minister in my lineage. Now, there's been a couple of preachers like in different, if you trace our family tree, in different lineages, but through my direct, I'm probably the only one. So I used to joke and say that on my mom's side, I was like 5th generation Pentecostal believer. On my dad's side, I was like 20th generation outlaw.
Okay.
So my mom would always make sure we went to church on Sunday morning, at least. We went to Sunday school and we went to Sunday morning church. But then my dad wasn't raised in church, wasn't raised around church. My dad was raised in the holler,
The holler.
The holler.
Where at?
Salina, Oklahoma.
Salina.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the holler.
Yep. I was talking to my dad a few weeks back, and he was telling me some stuff about his childhood that I didn't know, and that the original house down in the holler, my grandpa built, but with his own hands. And when he first built the house, there was no running water. My dad said he grew up with an outhouse, and then if you go out the front door of the old house, you kind of go down the hill, and there's a creek that runs down there at the bottom of the hill there on the other side of the holler, and there's a spring that comes out of the hill on that side. So they would haul their water from that spring up to the house my dad's whole childhood. And then on Sundays, they would take a bath. I mean, it's your typical hillbilly story. Or on Sundays, yep. Yeah. And all the brothers and sisters and mom and dad used the same bath water. So by the time I came along, they had running water in the bathtub and bathroom in Grandma and Grandpa's house. But it's funny because when all of us cousins was staying there, she would still, when Grandma would bathe us, all of us cousins would still use the same water.
Always want to go first, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm the oldest son of the oldest son. I'm going to need that clean bath water. My grandpa, he made moonshine early on in life. Just a very, very blue collar, working class family. And then on my mom's side was also very blue collar, working class, but they didn't come from the holler.
Yeah.
My mom's dad grew up in Sepulpa, Oklahoma. Left home when he was I can't remember, he was either 14 or 15 years old when he left home. His dad owned a salvage yard over in Sepulpa, and his mom was a second. Okay, so now her parents, I think, immigrated from Germany, and so she was a first generation American-born German. So my great grandmother on my mom's side was first generation American-born. So I've got some strong German roots there. But my mom grew up very different from my dad. My dad grew up in Salina, stayed in Salina his whole life, went to school, kindergarten through graduation in Salina. My mom was moved from Alaska to California to Oklahoma to Alaska to Oklahoma to California, and went to 13 different schools in 12 years.
Holy cow.
My grandpa worked on the Alaska pipeline when it was being built. And then they would migrate to Oklahoma for whatever reason. And I never had those conversations with my mom or with my grandpa. Why? Why did he move you around so much? But they did. so that's the couple that's raising me, and we returned to the holler a lot. I essentially grew up in the holler and running through the hills, in the foothills of the Ozarks. Me and my cousins just doing our thing. I guess really quintessential hillbillies, country folk.
It's funny because we're not that much different because other than my pastoral stories, but I grew up in Arkansas in the Ozarks,
right
down past Harrison on a place called Marshall, and very, very similar. Homesteaded, grandparents, great grandfather was a moonshiner, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very similar.
But you still look like a hillbilly. I don't.
I know. I just can't get away from it.
Look like you come from Appalachia, but
It's funny though how all of our how everybody's such a product of how they come up.
Yeah.
It's such an important, vital part of
it is
your story and who you become and how you receive and how you adapt. And
yep, it is. But we had a good upbringing. My mom, like I said, raised us in church, raised us in the Pentecostal Holiness Church in Westville, Oklahoma. I believe Oral Roberts was married in that church way back in the day. That was my upbringing, and then along about 1987, when I was 13 years old, my world kind of turned upside down, and my dad had made some bad decisions in life, and him and my mom split up in 1987, and what people, or what I think people, I think people perceive me and the way I perceive myself is to be a little bit of a loner, and I just kind of do things different, and I kind of march to the beat of my own drum a lot. So during that time, I feel like I separated from my mom and my brother a lot during that time, and I dealt with things my own way, and I kind of started going just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit wild, a little bit crazy. I'm not sure how you want to put it, but I started drinking at an early age, and I would even back before that. I remember before my mom and dad split up, my dad, he'd be like, "Hey, go get me a beer," and by the time I went and got him a beer and got it back to him, I'd have it half drank. And then
and he never noticed.
Oh, he noticed. He just made me have to go run for another beer sooner.
Yeah.
And then I remember he still razzes me about this. He had one of those little shooters of Jack Daniels in the refrigerator for years. He had bought it on a trip to Alaska and back, and it was a little bottle of Jack Daniels, a little shooter, and it was in there for so long. And every time I would open the fridge up, my mouth would just water. I look at that bottle. So I got real brilliant one day, and I drank that shooter of Jack Daniels, and I filled it back up with tea. And then probably 6 months to a year later, my dad went to drink that little shooter of Jack Daniels, and it was nothing but tea. And by then it was probably sour tea.
Like 6-month-old tea.
Yeah. And he knew who drank it. He didn't have to. There wasn't much investigation that had to go on there. But then when I started kind of really going out on my own, my mom was kind of fighting to keep me in church, but I was fighting to do my own thing, at the same time. And we went to Pryor a lot because my mom's sisters lived in Pryor, so we would go and stay the weekends with my mom's sisters, and then we would go to church with them, which was the North Elliott Church of God there in Pryor. So I spent a lot of time growing. I kind of partially grew up during my teenage years there in the Church of God and got my first exposure to that particular denomination then. But then in my junior year in high school, I got my girlfriend pregnant, and in July of 1991, my son Chris was born. I didn't get to see Chris till he was, I think, 11 months old because his mom had run off to Florida. She's pretty much crazy. She's a lunatic. Still is to this day.
Wow.
I'll never know why she took off to Florida. I'm not sure anybody knows why she took off to Florida. But Chris was born in Tampa. And like I said, he was 11 months old before I got to see him, and she had moved to Amarillo, Texas. So me and my mom, and I think my aunt Kathy might have went with us. We went to Amarillo and met her, and she let me take Chris home for the summer. Well, after I spent a summer with my son, even at the age of, I guess I would have been 19 by then, 18 or 19, I'm not sure. I'm like, I don't want to let him go back. I don't know what he's going back into, you know. So if memory serves correct, I talked her into moving back up to Oklahoma so that Chris could stay with me. And she did. She moved back up, and I thought we were going to make a run at getting back together and trying to make a relationship. But man, she was just too crazy, too wild, or whatever.
Wow.
And we went through some stuff there for a while, and finally I took her to court, and I won custody of my son early on. So I've had custody of Chris probably since he was a year and a half old. Some of those numbers may be off because it's been a long time ago. He turns 35 this year.
Wow.
So it's
He's 35. How old are you?
51.
51.
Yeah. So I was the summer between junior and senior, 16. I was 16 when Chris was born, turned 17 about a month later. The thing about me during that period of time in my late teens and all through my 20s, I look back now at the age of 51 and I look back at who I was during that time, and I just shake my head sometimes. I just because the only way to describe, I say I was wild as a March hare. I mean, wild as a March hare.
March hare.
You never heard that before?
Nope. There's a holler saying.
Wild as a March hare, a rabbit.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, you guys,
I'm thinking-
H-A-R-E.
I'm thinking,
okay. Yeah, I was like,
hare, like,
Yeah. March, H-A-R-E, a spring rabbit.
okay.
Okay.
Wild
that's
as a
making
spring
sense.
buck rabbit.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Now I'm thinking about a spring buck rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went to college for a couple semesters. I went to college at the U of A. I flunked out because I just didn't do anything. I didn't even show up and take my finals in my first semester of college.
What were you going to major in?
Political science.
Okay.
I honestly, I wanted to be a lawyer and get into politics. I was very idealistic in 1992. I was an H. Ross Perot supporter.
Okay.
Going to college at Bill Clinton's alma mater.
No,
Yeah. So very, very, very politically idealistic. And over the past 30-some years, my political ideals have... I'm not so idealistic anymore. But then I transferred to the University of Arkansas to Northeastern State University in Tahlequah. I spent 3 successful semesters there where I didn't flunk out. I was actually doing my work. I was actually going to class, turning in my assignments. But then I also got a job at a Little Debbie factory along at the same time. I went to work at McKee in 1993. The fall of '93 is when I went to work at McKee, and so I spent 2 semesters going to college in Tahlequah, getting off work or getting out of class, going home, changing clothes, and then driving to Gentry, Arkansas
That's a
to
haul.
go to work. It is. It's about 60 miles round trip from Westville to Tahlequah.
Yeah.
And then probably about the same from Westville to Gentry.
Yeah.
So I just got to a place where I was tired of doing it. Mm-hmm. I was spending a lot of time on the road, and I was for that decade in that era, I was making good money, really good money. Mm-hmm. And I think if I look back, I think back then that good money in '93 was about $9.50 an hour. Wow.
Yeah, I think '93. I think I was making like $6 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I was pulling down good money in '93, and I finally I'm like, I like the money better than the education.
Yeah.
So I dropped out of college and I spent 4 years working at McKee, which is Little Debbie is owned by McKee Food Corporation. The McKee family are Seventh-day Adventists, founded in Collegedale, Tennessee, by O.D. McKee.
So who's Little Debbie?
She was O.D. McKee's granddaughter.
Oh, okay.
She was the plant manager when I worked there.
Really?
And
Wow.
I met her
Okay.
a few
That's
times.
cool.
Yep.
Huh? Did she
Yep.
look like the picture on the box?
Not nearly as cute as an adult.
Oh man, remember Little Debbie's were a quarter? You go in and for $1, you can get a soda and a couple of Little Debbie's.
Get
Yeah.
you a oatmeal
Yeah.
cream pie and yeah.
Nowadays, man.
I know I
How
can't hardly
times
afford to buy a
change.
box. What was over those almost $3?
I don't really look at the prices. Be honest with you, unless my wife's with me. She's,
Yeah.
Did you see how much that cost? I just wanted it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
My dad sometimes raids the Little Debbie salvage over there.
Oh, over in
Yeah.
Gentry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because at the what's it called, the thrift store, not only can you buy like damaged boxes of cakes and stuff, back when I was working there, you could buy, they would bag up excess ingredients for dirt cheap. I mean, so you could get bags of sugar and flour and
Really?
chocolate chips and sprinkles, yeah, for dirt cheap. And I don't know if I haven't been to a thrift store in many years, but back then you could. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yep. And I used to have an addiction to Christmas tree cakes. So my friends, I still have a lot of friends that work at McKee. And when I was working for the Pepsi and Budweiser distributor a few years back, one of the truck drivers that works for McKee traded me a case of Christmas tree cakes for a case of Pepsi.
I got a friend that
Oh,
every
so
year
you're
for
in the baking selling business too, but just a
baking,
something
yeah, baking,
Yeah.
Yeah,
always.
I got a friend who he loves the Christmas tree cake so much that for Halloween he dresses up as Little Debbie, the dress and all. yeah, he's bearded. It's hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah,
My addiction never got that far along. That's funny.
So when did you begin to like make your journey to becoming a believer?
Well, man, being raised in the Pentecostal church in the 80s, we talked about it, during your episode, just really kind of hammered that belief into me. I got saved several times as a teenager. I cried my eyes out at many altars. Yeah. I left my rock and roll tapes on the altar at least twice. I left it. No, I didn't burn them. I left there, and the pastor did something.
Remember those times at youth camp? Everybody brought their rock CDs, and the screaming happened. And anyway,
yeah, the only screaming happened was me when I realized I was going to have to invest another $200 to replace that library.
I can't tell you how many times I threw packs of cigarettes out the window, and then I was driving back the next day trying to figure out where they were.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was a I don't want to say a victim, but I was a participant, a tenant in that whole fear-based 80s. You're going to be left behind. If you stub your toe and say a cuss word, you're going to hell. Especially if Jesus comes in the next minute. And like we talked about, I can't tell you how many sermons I preached or I heard preached where the preacher talked about some young teenage girl or some young teenage boy. They went to a church service and they were called to get saved, and they didn't heed the call. Died in a car wreck on their way home.
Yeah,
I can't. The epidemic of teenage deaths and car wrecks was off the charts back then.
Oh, it was insane.
What was the big thing that some of the guy did with the hell houses? That
Mm-hmm.
that was a big
They did
thing.
the hell house things, Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was the movie that came out in the 80s? Like a Thief in the Night.
Wasn't that the title of it?
Yeah,
A Thief in the Night.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about that is like the guy who was mowing the yard without his shirt off, like went in a rapture, and I remember my dad going, "Yeah, that's not accurate.
Not accurate. That's not happening.
No man who goes without his shirt is going in the
That's
rapture.
not accurate. That's heresy."
Yeah, but man, I can remember being in youth group back then in the 80s and early 90s then, and them telling us all the horrible stuff that the Antichrist minions would do to us to try to get us to take the mark of the beast. They're going to take needles and they're going to put them underneath your fingernails until you take the mark. I'm like, I don't want that. They're going to put needles in your ears and bust your eardrums so that you'll take the mark of the beast.
Yeah, where did they get this stuff?
Torture your family. Yeah, I don't know. I've studied the Bible for over 20 years and never found any of it.
No.
Yeah.
But it scared the hell out of us.
Yeah, it did.
And that's why I was as a teenager, those times I wasn't living right, and I'd come home and my mom's car was in the driveway, but mom wasn't home, and every time I couldn't find my mom, I missed the rapture again. I mean, I've missed the rapture 8 or 10 times, at least 8 or 10 times.
Now, I know you said it scared the hell out of you, but did it ever just make you mad too? Like make you mad to the point, like why would God? I mean, why would I want to serve God who just has seemingly takes pleasure in just punishing?
Yeah, I
did. I struggled with that a little bit.
I didn't until I became an adult.
Yeah.
And my critical thinking skills began to develop. And when my critical thinking skills began to develop, that's when a whole lot of things started to change for me, because it took that part. I have some kind of a personality disorder that causes me to rebel against authority. I'm 51 years old and I'm still kicking against the goad. Okay. I mean, I'm serious. The status quo, the authority, I hate it. and I'm just not going to play. I'm not going to play nice. I'm going to do what I want to do. But so anyway, to answer your question, I was always a believer. Even when I was partying, and even when I was the good timer, even when I was fighting, even when I was strung out on meth, I'd sit in a room full of people that've been up for 4, 5, 6 days and sit around and tell them, if Jesus come back right now, we're all going to be left behind. We're going to have to we're going to have to go through the tribulation, and every one of us is going to be left behind. And I would teach and regurgitate all of that stuff that had been poured out into me in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. You just go through life regurgitating this stuff. You believe it, you heard it. It was just driven into you so hard. I mean, how do you even shake it? You just don't. It's just.
I think really what you really needed was like a good old fashioned Jericho march
with flags.
And tambourines.
Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I would bring a friend to church, and all of a sudden some lady would get up and start walking around the church. Like,
looking at everybody.
No.
Come on.
Please, no. Don't let it happen, Lord.
It's
Don't
happening.
let it happen. Then everybody's walking around, and then my friend's like, what are they doing? I don't know. Just roll with it.
Just roll with it.
Just walk around.
Yeah. And just go on and on and on. Yeah, but it was when I was working at the Little Debbie factory that I first sampled methamphetamine. So I was at a party one night, and it was a bunch of us Little Debbie people that had gotten together, and there were some out of town people. The woman that threw the party had met some guys at a club in Tulsa the weekend before and invited them to this party. It just so happened these guys were meth dealers from California.
And that's when Little Debbie's went downhill.
Oh, man. So I end up, it's, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I've had quite a bit to drink. And the guys, hey, man, let's come out here and sit in the truck for a little bit. And so I went out there and sat down, and they cut 3 lines out on a CD case, and I snorted that line of meth for the first time. And the bad thing about it is I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I was up for probably 2 days on that initial sampling. So after that initial try, I didn't touch it. I didn't know where to find it, who to get it from for quite a long time. And then I ended up working in the shipping department on third shift, graveyard shift at the McKee factory. I was there in shipping for 2 years on third shift before they fired me. For some reason, they expected me to show up to work more often than what I was, and they invited me to leave and not come back. But during that time, I met a guy that was on third shift with me, and I found out that he lived way out in the boonies in I'm sure if it's in Delaware County or Mace County, in an area called Terracida. And he made moonshine and he made meth. And so I started getting my meth from him. And then from that point on, I just started making more and more connections and finding more and more people that I could get it from.
Is that, and it's kind of a weird question, but is that kind of when the meth epidemic began, kind of 90s? Like, because now it's obviously everywhere.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it really kind of made its entrance.
I think in the 90s it became more widespread.
Yeah.
Because in the 90s you started having all of these little cooks making what a lot of people call bathtub crank, or whatever. And the ingredients were so easy to access back then because there was no federal regulations. You can't, like now, you can't buy ephedrine or pseudoephedrine without signing your name to it.
Yeah.
Back then, I could go in. I don't know if y'all remember what mini thins are.
Oh, I had a buddy that was street addicted to mini thins and no-dos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would go. One time, here's something that happened. I went to a particular store where my dad had a charge account, and I charged an entire case of mini thins because I was going to take these mini thins, give them to my dope cook, and have a whole bunch of dope.
Wow.
And did it, and never paid for the pills. And so the owner, I had a cousin that worked at the store, and the owner kept telling her, hey, he needs to pay for this. Hey, he needs to pay for this. And I finally told her, I said, tell you what, you tell him that I'm not paying for these pills, and if he ever says another word about it, I'll burn his house down.
Oh, geez.
I never heard another word about it.
Yeah, you went Walter White all of a sudden.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and along about the same time, I started getting involved in the music scene in Northwest Arkansas. I played for many years a band called Southern Pride. Played a lot of private parties, small clubs, and bars around Northwest Arkansas, Northeast Oklahoma. Some pretty crazy stories. But then, and I started out taking many things when I played music. But then once I got this meth hookup, I found out, man, if I got high on meth, my music experience was euphoric. And so because of that, that's really what catapulted me down that really dark road that I went down.
Wow.
So I started dabbling in probably 95. And then by the time 2002 come around, I knew cooks in 3 states, and I was running stolen guns and drugs across state lines and distributing and shopping vehicles, all that kind of stuff in a matter of 7 years. So during that time, that the music, and I still love to play music, but I just do it without the speed now.
Now, did you still live at home during all that time, or?
Let's see. I lived at home until about 96, I think.
Okay.
Still living at home because when I met my wife in April of 95. I was still living at home. And then she and I moved in together into a little trailer house in Westville. And I believe 96. It would have been 96. She graduated high school in 96, 4 years after I did. So it would have been right around that time.
Okay.
Right around that time. And so we lived in that little trailer house there in Westville, partied a lot. I partied a lot. Stephanie's never been a partier. She likes to be in control. I like to get out of control. So she's always, I tell her she's the kite to my string. If it wasn't for her string, I would be off in the stratosphere.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I ended up getting fired from the Little Debbie factory for not showing up for work a lot, and I got into the construction industry. Went to work for a metal stud framing sheetrock company in Northwest Arkansas. So in the beginning of that big boom that Northwest Arkansas is still seeing, I was working in the construction industry in buildings, Fayetteville, Springdale, Bentonville, and Rogers, and it wasn't long before I was selling a little bit of dope on the job sites to other trades and different things. So then I'm prone to delusions of grandeur. So after I sold a couple baggies of dope, I decided, hey, I'm a drug dealer. and drug dealers don't need to work, and drug dealers make big money.
Printed out some business cards and let's go.
Exactly. So I drug up and decided I didn't need a legal job anymore. Well, it didn't really work out. Stephanie and I were married in 99. We were married in February of 99. Our first daughter, Erin, was born in September of 99. So up until September of 99, until when Erin was born, Stephanie was always with me. When I'd go play music or I'd go to parties, she was always with me. And she would always be the one, if it was 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm still going strong, she was the one nagging me and beating me over the head, telling me, it's time to go home. It's time to go home. We're going home. And she'd jump down my friends' throats. I'll never forget, the band had a gig one night, and then we were going to go do an after party. We were going to set all the music up again and play music through the wee hours of the night. And two of my rougher buddies, they said, let us talk to her. She was sitting in the truck, probably 4 or 5 months pregnant with Erin, and they think they could handle her.
That's great.
Yeah, needless to say, we went home. We didn't stay and party that night.
They're like, you better go.
Yeah. I'll never forget. I can still see it in my mind. She was like a cornered bobcat in the cab of my truck. And those two guys come to the door really smiling and really turning on the charm. And she cut loose on them. And,
oh my gosh.
Then we went home.
Now your son, you talked about your son. He was with you guys through that period of time?
No, actually, I took advantage of my mom. My mom fell in love with Chris, and my mom pretty well raised Chris.
Okay.
Because I was running amok.
Yeah.
And as long as my mom was willing to take care of Chris and not hold me accountable and hold my feet to the fire, then I was just doing what I wanted to do. It wasn't until after I cleaned up from drugs and got into church that Chris come and lived with us. I think from the time he was 12, but I can't remember for sure. So I decided to be a drug dealer, decided I was going to get rich doing that. The problem that I found was if I had a mass amount of methamphetamine, I wasn't selling as much as I was snorting. Like if I was supposed to, like if I had a say an ounce, which is 28 grams. So if I had 28 grams to sell, I'm probably going to snort 27 grams.
Wow.
Wow. Or share with my friends 27 grams and maybe sell that 1 gram for $100.
Oh, man.
And at one point in time, I got about $2,000 in the red to some cartel connections.
That's not a good idea.
No, it wasn't. But some different things unfolded and happened. And unless somebody that watches this podcast recognizes this story,
That would be bad. That'd be ironic.
yeah. But yeah, I was kind of able to fly under the radar, and I got away with that. During that time, let's see, I'm trying to think. I think it was 2000 or 01 was the first time I got busted. So I got busted 3 different times with meth. The first time was in West Siloam, alongside the old Black Hawk bar. I got pulled over on a dirt road. I beat that case because the judge ruled that the cops had done an illegal search and seizure, so the evidence was sealed.
Wow.
I pulled up to this random drug and alcohol checkpoint. Cop, he says, "You got any guns in there?" "No." "Got any alcohol in there?" "No." "Got any drugs in there?" "No." "Can I search your truck?" "Sure." Because up until that point, anytime a cop had asked to search my vehicle, it had just been a bluff.
Yeah.
And once I agreed to let them search, they would just let me go. Well, Rick Wilkerson was not bluffing.
Oh, boy.
And Rick Wilkerson and I got to know each other a little bit. He and I actually, we had a storyline that kind of went.
Wow.
So he's like, "Can I search your truck?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" "All right, boys, get out." Oh, no. So he found in my truck guns, he found in my truck alcohol, and he found in my truck drugs. So I went to jail that night for the first time. But that was the case where the Supreme Court has ruled that apparently random drug and alcohol checkpoints are unconstitutional.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yep. So the judge in Delaware County sealed the evidence. So when the prosecutors didn't have any evidence for the case, they couldn't prosecute me. So the next time I got busted, I believe, was in Benton County, Arkansas. Stephanie was in Washington visiting her siblings in Washington up there, and she had Aaron with her. Chris was with my mom. I had been up probably 3 or 4 days, and somebody had given me a glass pipe, a Pyrex pipe that looked like a corncob pipe. It had a really nice little stem and a great big bowl. So I'm driving down Highway 43 in between Siloam Springs and Maysville, Arkansas. Middle of the night, out in the country, middle of nowhere. I'm driving with my knee. I'm steering with my knee, and I've got my hands operating this pipe, smoking meth going down the highway. Evidently, I was speeding, and I come upon this sharp curve, and there was a whole platoon of Benton County cops sitting there.
Oh.
They pulled me over for speeding. "Can we search your car?" I'm like, "Hell no." I learned my lesson. And they're like, "Okay." So they run the drug dog on it. The drug dog hit, and so that gave them probable cause to search. They found my big glass pipe. They found all my little baggies, and I went to jail again that night. While we were sitting there in the car before they took me to jail, one of my friends drives by. Well, we're pulled over there, and I've got my hands cuffed behind my back. And he honks his horn and gives a big wave. And I'm like, "That sorry sucker." So the arresting officer says, "Boy, I'd like to get him one of these days." And I said, "How bad you want him?" They said, "Don't say another word till we get back to the police station." So what I found is if all I had to do was agree to roll on somebody, and they turned me loose that night, just by agreeing to roll on them.
Wow.
But I also found out about 2 years later, when you ghost them, they're really mad. Because that cop had to stick his neck out to the DA and to a judge that night to get get them to let
They don't
him
like
turn
that.
me loose. No, I made a fool of him because after he turned me loose, he never saw me again until a couple years later. And I'll get there in a few minutes because that part of the story is anyway. So then the third time I was busted was actually in Westville. And I was, at this point in time, this was like the pinnacle of my drug addiction. I was out of my ever-loving mind, probably been up 5 or 6 days. I had a whole bunch of dope. I was trying to peddle early in the morning around small town Westville. I think it was Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend because there was a big bunch of highway patrolmen patrolling the intersection of 59 and 62 there in Westville. And so I met a highway patrol on the road. I didn't have a seatbelt on, so he pulled me over for not having a seatbelt on at the gas station there at what is now Casey's in Westville. It's a 4-way stop. So I had a rule, this rule. I mean, meth addicts, meth users, they think they're so organized and so smart. I had rules for myself. One of my number one rules was never to crush up a rock of meth with my driver's license. Don't ever do that. Because inevitably, residue is going to remain on your driver's license, and if you get stopped by a police officer, you hand it to them, and if they run any kind of test. Well, the night before, I had broken my rule. The night before I got pulled over, I had smashed up a rock with my driver's license. So I pulled over to the gas station, acted like so nonchalant. I was so smooth. I was just putting the gas pump. He's like, and he flipped his lights on, come up behind me. He's like, I need to see your driver's license. I was like, no problem. Pulled my driver's license out of my wallet, and there is a big old patch of meth stuck to my driver's license.
Oh, no.
As I handed it to him, I saw it, and my heart sank.
And no taking it back.
No taking it back.
Oh, no.
So that time, I had a portable police scanner in the truck with me. I was lucky because I didn't have any guns with me that time, because normally along about that time I was carrying a sawed-off shotgun around with me, but I didn't have any guns with me that time. But I had the police scanner. I had a whole bunch of empty baggies with scrapings, residue on them. I probably had some scales in the truck with me. Yeah. So that highway patrolman busted me for possession of a controlled dangerous substance with intent to distribute. So he was charging me as a dealer. He also charged me for having a police scanner.
Well, you wanted to be a dealer.
Yeah.
Your dreams came true.
My dreams came true that day. Yeah, he charged me. So several charges: driving in with a suspended license, no insurance, no license plate, everything he could get me for.
Oh my gosh!
So one of the highway patrolmen that was working that day was a guy that had graduated high school a year before me, and I knew him. We'd known each other in school. And so he's the one that they decide he's the one that's going to take me to jail. So on the way to the Adair County Sheriff's Department, he starts asking me about people I know. I'm like, oh, I know this game. I'm going home today.
Oh, gosh.
So I tell him that I do indeed know certain people, and that, are you willing to give information? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll give you information. So he gets me back to the Adair County Sheriff's Office. I interview with the undersheriff, talk about people I know. They turn me loose. These guys were, because they were so close to my hometown, I wasn't able to hide from them quite so easily.
Yeah.
So one day the undersheriff, I'm at home in Westville, one of the few times I was actually home, the undersheriff calls me. He says, hey, I'm coming by and I'm going to pick you up. He comes by, picks me up. We go to Summers, Arkansas, and park in an empty church parking lot. A black SUV pulls into the church parking lot. Little did I know, but he's having me meet with federal DEA agents.
Oh,
yeah,
big stuff.
Yeah. So these DEA agents pull up and they're talking to us, and they ask me. I'm thinking it was, if I remember right, they asked me about 4 different people, and it was all 4 people that I was very closely associated with. So I'm thinking to myself, if they're asking me about these people that they know I know, they already know things about me. So after the undersheriff dropped me off that day, I disappeared. And they never saw me again. Now, that story's not over yet either.
I was going to say,
I was going to say that catches up at some point, don't it?
Yeah. All of this stuff has been rectified in real life by now. All of this stuff, I have no warrants.
Right
I have no open charges. No, everything's taken care of. All of this stuff is rectified. So So this has got to be in 2002 because it's August of 2002 when I cleaned up. Emily was born in April of 2002. And I think that last time I got busted might have been it must have been around Memorial Day because it was just right around that springtime of '02. Me and one of my friends was driving from Westville to Salina, Oklahoma to score some dope. I was driving a 1980 Chevrolet with a 350, had a really high geared rear end, and it was a step side. So that thing would go fast. My speedometer didn't work. So we get to Little Kansas and we turn north on Highway 10 headed toward J because I was going to hit Kenwood Road, take a left, take Kenwood Road to Salina. I don't even know how fast I was going, but I blow up on this highway patrol. I come flying up behind a highway patrol, okay? I follow him there for about maybe 45 seconds, and suddenly he pulls off to the road, off the shoulder, lets me go past, and he gets in behind me. I have warrants in at least 3 counties. I have open container, and I have a loaded shotgun in the truck with me.
So you took off.
I took off. The next dirt road I come to, I jerked my truck off. I cut down that road. Immediately, that highway patrol hit his lights and takes in after me. Luckily, those guys are trained pretty well. And he stayed just far enough back. He let me have my head. And on that dirt road, I finally hit a corner where that light rear end on that truck started to fishtail. And that truck went like this, fishtailed, did a 180, come around and hit the windrow, the gravel windrow on the side of the road, and flipped. It actually flipped all the way over on the cab and then rolled back to the side. Now, while we were running down that road, my friend started jacking the shells out of that shotgun. And I said, "Don't do that." I said, "We're not stopping." And in my mind, I was going to shoot it out. I was going to commit suicide by cop that night. I was going to get to a place where I could stop, and I was going to shoot. I was going to shoot. Thanks be to the Lord God Almighty, my truck wrecked before I got a chance to do that.
Oh my gosh.
This is my turning point right here. So the truck, like I said, rolled all the way over on the cab and then rolled back onto the side. My buddy that was with me kicked the windshield out, and he got out. And he was yelling at the cop, "Bucky's inside, Bucky's inside." He was kind of freaking out. The cop had his gun pulled, and he was telling my buddy, "Get down, get down, get down." And finally he got down, and I'm in shock. I can't move. I'm just in shock. The truck catches on fire. Looking back now, I know what happened. What happened was gas had spilled out of the carburetor, and the battery arced against the firewall. Now, when gas catches on fire, it doesn't go out.
No.
So this highway patrolman, he's got ambulances coming, he's got the fire department coming, and I'm sitting in my truck with it on fire, thinking to myself, I'm about to burn to death, and this is going to hurt. So as I'm thinking that, and I start to try to come to and start trying to get out, that fire actually goes out before the fire department ever gets there. So I finally make my way out of the truck. The cop's got the gun pulled on me, screaming, "Get down, get down, get down." The fire department gets there. The fire was already out. Ambulance gets there. I refuse treatment. So he arrests me. I get 7 citations that night. For some reason, none of them were felonies. 7 misdemeanors.
How is that possible?
How?
I have no idea. 7 misdemeanors. I thought that at least attempting to elude would have been a felony.
Oklahoma Highway Patrolman, you would think he would have just thrown the book at you.
You would have thought. But he wrote 7 tickets and took me to Delaware County Jail that night. Just so happens I had a distant cousin that was a bondsman in Delaware County at the time, and she bonded me out the next day. I didn't even have to go before a judge. She bonded me out. At this point in time, me and Stephanie were split up because I had run so crazy and so amok. She had given me an ultimatum: you either come home and stay or don't come back. Well, I was so strung out, I made the decision I just wasn't coming back. So we go along through time. I'm trying to stay on the down low. I've now got, well, to back up, on those 7 counts, I didn't ever go to any court dates. I FTA'd. So then I had warrants in Delaware County for that. I had warrants in Adair County for that. I had warrants in Benton County for that. I had warrants in Mays County for I don't even remember what. And then I found out later on, all during this time, I had warrants in different towns and counties in Northwest Arkansas because I'd written a bunch of hot checks. And then what they do over there, or what they did back then, was they would distribute those hot checks to municipalities to take care of. And so I had warrants in Elkins, Arkansas, Prairie Grove, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas on hot checks. So I had more warrants out for my arrest during this time than I even knew.
Wow. Man.
And I know we're going to get to this, but I'm just, my head's spinning like, how the heck are you not still in jail?
I didn't get caught doing a lot of the things that I did.
Okay.
There was one night, Rick Wilkerson, the first cop to ever bust me, transferred, or he quit Delaware County, went to work at Mays County. One time I had 100 grams of pseudoephedrine breaking down in chemicals in the trunk of Stephanie's car. I was bad about taking off in Stephanie's car and being gone for weeks with her and leaving her afoot because I was just a sorry bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, methamphetamine brings out every negative aspect of my personality and multiplies it times 100. There was nothing good about the man that I was when I was strung out on meth.
Wow.
Nothing good about that man. I would leave my wife and my children at home, not taken care of, no food, no bills being paid, so I could run dope and different stuff like that up and down the road. I was a scourge of society at that point. So anyway, there was one time I dropped my cousin off at a house in the middle of the night, pulled out, left that house, come around a curve, and there was, I'll never know how many, there was at least 5 to 8 Mays County and Cherokee Nation marshals parked there. And when they saw me pull out of that house and come around that corner, they got behind me. And they followed me for about 15 miles before they finally pulled me over. And at this time, I had no driver's license. There was an insurance and tag on Stephanie's car, so that wasn't a big deal. So they pull me over, and I get out of the car, and lo and behold, it's my old buddy Rick Wilkerson.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, I go, Rick? He goes, Bucky? First thing he says is, Bucky, can I search the car? I said, Rick, my lawyer told me not to ever let you search my car. And he just hung his head, and he said, I hate lawyers. And he sure enough turned me loose that night. And if he would have just searched my car, if he would have convinced himself he had probable cause, he would have got me on conspiracy to manufacture meth with all the chemicals I had in the trunk that night.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many times I would be at a particular house and we would be literally manufacturing methamphetamine, cooking meth, and the cops would pull up looking for somebody. There was one night a single cop pulled up in front of the house, and I think it was a 38, and I stepped out on the front porch. I put the 38 in my waistband, and I walked out to the cop, and the cop said, Bucky, get in, sit down, let's talk for a minute. And he was come to find out he was looking for my cousin. I was like, I don't know where he's at. I wouldn't tell you if I did. So a lot of close calls.
Yeah.
A lot of close calls. Chopping vehicles. High profile, stolen vehicles, chopping them in the middle of the night, cutting them up into pieces. That's all I'll say about that. So I had FTA'd on those seven misdemeanors, and my bondsman started looking for me. At the same time, I used to hang out at a bar in West Siloam called Pete's Place. I went to the Black Hawk a little bit, but I've spent most of my time at Pete's. And I went into Pete's one night, and the bartender pulled me aside. She said, hey, she said, the West Siloam cops was in here last night looking for you. She said, evidently, they're working with Arkansas, and they're trying to catch you. I said, thank you for the information. And that's when I knew that I had to really go into hiding. I had to stop making public appearances. At the exact same time, my bondsman was looking for me because she wanted me to turn myself in because she was on the hook for my bond.
Yeah.
So my bondsman finally tracked me down. And she told me, Bucky, if you'll just come and turn yourself in at Delaware County, I'll bond you right back out. It's not a big deal. If you promise me you'll show up for your court date. I said, you don't understand. I've got warrants, and I know that they're looking for me in Benton County. They're not going to let me go. She said, no, they won't even run your warrants. They won't even check. So she talked me into it. I said, okay. I'd been up for about 3 days, maybe 4 days. And my aunt took me to Jay to turn myself in, met my bondsman there. They put me in the booking area. And guess what happened? Sure enough, they run my warrants. They found my warrants, the warrants in Benton County, Arkansas. So they couldn't turn me loose. Like I said, I've been up for about 3 or 4 days at this point in time. So they put me, I'll never forget, they put me in cell number 5 in B-Pod in Delaware County Jail. And this time I had a bed. All the times I'd been in Delaware County, they were so crowded, I'd never had a bed before. I'd always put my mat underneath the bottom bunk and sleep under there. So this time I had a top bunk, and because obviously I didn't have access to any more meth, I started crashing. So I spent the next 2 or 3 days going in and out of sleep, just sleeping the majority of the time. My cellmates would wake me up when it was time to eat, or whatever. And it was long about the second day I was sleeping it all off. I was laying there in bed in my bunk, and not even think about anything but just trying to sleep. And I heard, there's 2 times in my life that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I've heard the voice of God talk to me. Only 2 times. And this was the first. And the Holy Spirit said to me, you can walk away from all of this if you want. But if you don't, you're going to go to an early grave, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in and out of places just like this. And the wording that the Lord used was very key, because I had started to want out of that life, but I didn't think I could walk away. I thought that I was in too deep. I thought that I had too many irons in the fire to just walk away from it. Once again, delusions of grandeur. Mm-hmm. So when the Lord said to me, you can walk away from it, I'm like, I can just walk away from it. So the fact that he told me I could walk away from it, and then he promised me an early grave, made a believer out of me. It got my attention. Wow. And that was August the 21st of 2002. Never forget the day. I just turned 28 about 9 days before that. And so I said, okay, Lord, I'll walk away from it. Let's see what you got. Let's see what's going to happen. So I spent 3 weeks in Delaware County Jail. After the first week, I made trustee. There was a jailer there that took a liking to me, and she pulled me out, and I got to be nighttime trustee. So, yeah. Wow. That's exactly what? So I spent 2 weeks as trustee, and I got on everybody's good side because I'm a cook, a creative cook. So I was making breakfast burritos, I was making pancakes, all this kind of crazy stuff that jails, they don't get that stuff, So after 3 weeks of being in Delaware County Jail, I'd had my court appearance. I think I ended up pleading out to some fines and some probation, I think. Not a big deal. But after I got finished with that, then I was extradited to Benton County, Arkansas, where the Benton County police officer had a vendetta for me.
Well, sure.
So they took me to Bentonville.
That's the one that you owe some names to?
It is. Yeah. It is. They took me. The guy took me to Bentonville. They booked me, put me in a cell. I didn't know how long I was going to be in jail. I didn't know how long I was going to be in Benton County. But in the middle of the night, like 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't even know what time it was, a jailer come and got me out of my pod, out of my cell, and took me to a holding cell. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. He's like, just wait here. And he closed the door and locked me in. It wasn't very long before my old buddy, I don't remember his name now, but he was the one that I had made some promises to. He come in, and he was mad.
He was coming in hot.
He came in hot. He did. He's yelling at me. He's like, where have you been? And I'm like, I've been around.
Just having a good time.
You didn't get my calls?
Yeah. I'm not hard to find. And he told me, he said, I'm going to talk to the judge, and you're not getting out of here. You're not getting out of here. So don't even think you're making bond. So I'm like scared
Yeah.
because I'm still in kind of a broken, fragile emotional state at this point in time. So the next morning I'm brought before the judge, and he sets my bond. I don't remember what my bond was, but outside of jail, my mom and my wife and my brother had been working, and they had a bondsman there to bond me out right then and there. The very next day. I'm like, all right. So the bondsman takes me to Fayetteville because I had warrants there. So he does my bond in Fayetteville. I don't remember if it was Fayetteville City or Washington County at this point, but whichever it was, he took care of me there and turned me loose to go home. I had to make my court dates, though.
Yeah.
Did you have any problems not? I mean, was you clean from that moment, or did you struggle?
Never struggled.
Really? You
Never
just
struggled.
made your mind up.
Yep. After I did a bump before I went to jail, like on the 19th of August, and that's the last time.
Wow.
There was never a struggle. There was never a temptation to do it again.
So at what point did you decide that ministry, being called to preach?
That comes a few years later. So I got to get through this court case first.
Okay, sorry.
So the DA wanted to put me in jail for a month and have all kinds of fines and stuff. I had a public defender at that time, and evidently back then the Benton County Public Defender's Office was pretty good because my public defender was able to get them down to 10 days in jail, 3 years probation, and my fines. And I was able to do my 10 days in jail on weekends.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
So I was able to go 5 weekends and serve 2 days at a time.
It's like community service.
Yeah. And then the other cases that I had in Adair County, I started seeing reports on the news where the district attorney for Cherokee County, it was Cherokee County, Cherokee County, Adair County, and maybe Sequoia County was under one district attorney. So I started seeing reports on the Tulsa News that the district attorney and their assistant DAs had been charged with stealing evidence from the evidence locker. 6 months later, I get a letter from that district saying that my case had been kicked because of evidentiary issues.
No way.
I'm not kidding you a bit. I could not believe it.
That don't happen.
You can walk away from this.
You
Exactly.
literally are
Exactly.
walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get chills telling that part of the story now because that don't happen.
Yeah.
That stuff don't happen.
No. Holy cow.
That's the grace of God right there. Such undeserved, unmerited grace God gives
Completely.
us.
I'm speechless. I'm like, this is nuts.
Completely. Because the stuff that I told you about that I didn't get caught for doing, I should still be in prison.
Yeah.
Probably federal.
They need to make a movie. If you're listening, any movie producers.
So during this time, while Stephanie and I were split up, she had landed in Shodo, Oklahoma. Shodo is about 10 miles from Pryor, Oklahoma. And if you remember the significance of Pryor, that's where my mom's sisters lived when I was a kid, and we would go to Pryor, stay with my aunt, and then go to church at North Elliott Church of God.
Okay.
So we're living in Shodo, Oklahoma. I don't know anything about any churches in Mays County except North Elliott Church of God. And so that's where we start going to church. Start getting involved in the church. And man, I'm just trying to bury myself in the church because I buried myself in the meth subculture for so long. And it really wasn't. It was an entire matter of about 7 years. But the extent into which I immersed myself was pretty extreme. So I tried to chase God with the same tenacity. And so I ended up teaching a Wednesday night children's class, like I think it was like the 5th and 6th grade kids. And I was teaching with a very seasoned, very knowledgeable lady that had known me as a kid and different things. Her name was Connie. So there was a particular Wednesday night, I think, that the kids in our class were doing some other different activities. So she and I just had some free time, and we were sitting there in the back. And she asked me, she said, so how's the MIP going? And for those that don't know, MIP is the Ministerial Internship Program. So in order to be licensed in the Church of God, nowadays you have to go through the CAMS process, which is an initial training process. Then you go through the MIP, and then you can begin to get your higher credentialing. Okay. So I had told Stephanie that I had told her, I kind of feel like I might be called to preach or to minister. But Stephanie's the only one I had talked to about that. She hadn't told anybody, I hadn't told anybody. So me and Connie are sitting there, and Connie says, so how's MIP going? I'm not in MIP, Connie, what are you talking about? She goes, no, I'm sure. And then she stops, she goes, I dreamed you were in the MIP program, but you're not, are you? And I said, no, I'm not, but I'm going to be now. So it was after that I approached my pastor, and I filled out the application.
Who was your pastor at that time?
Robert Kilman.
Okay.
So got through the MIP. My leadership responsibilities continued to grow there in the local church. But at the same time, I started to get real antsy. It was like thorns in the nest, you know. It's like if thorns don't start to show up in the nest, the baby birdies they'll never take off, and those thorns begin to form. So I sent my resume in for the church in Kenai, Alaska. They'd already found a pastor for Kenai, Alaska, but the state overseer said, if you don't mind, I'll keep your resume in a file. No problem. Tried out at Shodo. No, I was invited to try out at Shodo, but I went and tried out, but they ended up choosing John Donnelly. That's when John went to pastor at Shodo. Then I got an invitation to try out for the church that James Douglas now pastors before James. This was when James took over as pastor. And I knew I was familiar with the church because Dale and Margaret Money had been pastoring there, and I had gone to preach for them a couple times, and I just knew the church wanted James, so I didn't even go try out there. So I'm welding in a steel shop in Maisie, Oklahoma, making a good living, making good money. Stephanie she worked for 5 years, I think, as a paralegal for a local defense attorney in Pryor. She has a bachelor's in criminal justice. Most people don't know. And then she has a master's. Her master's is in counseling with a school counselor emphasis. So she was a school counselor in Broken Arrow at an elementary school in Broken Arrow. I was welding out at Maisie. We're making a good living in Pryor, going to church. Everything's good. Out of the blue, I get a call from a man named Charles Fisher. He left me a message because I wasn't able to answer the phone. He said, I am the state overseer for the Churches of God in Alaska, BC. I have a church that is 33 miles above the Arctic Circle on the Chukchi Sea that's 80% native Inupiat Alaskan native. Are you interested?
And what was your first initial reaction to that?
Excitement.
Yeah.
Excitement. Because Stephanie and I are very adventurous.
Yeah.
We're very adventurous. So I was going on my first missions trip with Dale and Margaret Money, leaving New Year's Eve 2010. So December 31st, 2010, I flew out for Bolivia, spent 2 weeks in Bolivia, come home. Stephanie and I were ready to take the church sight unseen. We were ready to go. We had talked about it, and we said, you know what? If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Yeah.
But the state council in Alaska and the state overseer, they wouldn't allow us to do that. They wanted us to come and visit the church. So they paid for us to fly from Tulsa to Anchorage, spent a couple days in Anchorage, and then flew us up to Kotzebue. We spent the weekend in Kotzebue. I preached there. I interviewed with the church, let them ask me questions. And so when I got back from...
quite a move.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oklahoma to Alaska.
Yeah. When I got back from Bolivia, I was home for 2 weeks. Stephanie and I flew out to Alaska. We were gone for about a week, come back from Alaska. The church voted me in, and by the end of February, the last weekend of February, we were moving from Pryor, Oklahoma to Kotzebue, Alaska.
Now, to move to Kotzebue, Alaska, I mean, you're renting a moving truck. I know this is like not anywhere about back row revival stuff, but I mean, you rent a moving truck, right? What do you do?
No, it was considered an international move.
Okay.
So the denomination, the Church of God, paid for the entire move.
Okay.
So they
You couldn't
rented
take everything, could you?
No, we sold a bunch of stuff and we put a bunch of stuff in storage. I think we sold either 1 or 2 cars, and they paid to send one of our cars up there.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened was me and Stephanie packed up the house. The moving company shows up and they're like, "Oh no, we can't do this because it's an international move. We have to pack your stuff." So I had to unpack all the stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And they repacked it. And then I was allowed a certain amount of weight, and they said, "You're overweight. You're way overweight." Come to find out, I was not overweight.
I've been hearing that my whole life.
Come to find out, I was not overweight. So we made the move, and we spent 2 years and 3 months in Kotzebue, Alaska, as pastors, and it was some of the most exciting and interesting time of my entire life. Living amongst the Eskimo people, ice fishing, eating whale blubber called muktuk, making friends. I still have friends on my Facebook list from Alaska that are native, that I still maintain relationship and communication with. The Friends Church, the Quakers are the dominant denomination there, and if you're going to do ministry in the villages and ministry with Native people, you have to get in with the Quakers. So I made friends. I was intentional. I made friends with the Friends Church, and I ended up being invited to preach at some of their quarterly denominational meetings out in the villages.
I didn't think Quakers had formal service. Maybe I'm
They do
ignorant,
now.
but-
They do now.
But they used to just kind of show up and
And sit around
and
until they
wait
felt like
till
God
somebody-
spoke.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah, but now they have more. They have services like evangelicals do. Yeah. So I was appointed to the Alaska State Youth Board while I was up there. So I worked on the youth board in Alaska. My turning point, or a turning point, a steering point that started me in the direction that I'm at now, that got me here, happened while I was in Kotzebue. You know, when you're preaching to a bunch of evangelical, Wesleyan holiness-oriented, Pentecostal, charismatic believers, it's easy to get them amening and shouting when you start damning the homosexuals to hell.
Yeah.
They'll get on board with you. Especially nowadays, if you start damning them and talking about their sin and they're going to hell. So
It definitely seemed to be a soapbox.
definitely
It's an easy one.
Yeah. So I was like you when you went to Michigan. I had certain things that I knew, and damning homosexuals to hell was one of them. And so one morning I got up on that soapbox. And after service was over, a lady who is now a very, very treasured special friend of mine pulled me into my own office in the church, closed the door, and she said, "Pastor, I want to invite my boss to church." And I'm thinking to myself, good, we need more people. She said, "But when you preach like you just preached, I can't invite him because she's a lesbian and she has a lesbian lover. And I cannot and I will not invite them to a church where hatred and bigotry is preached from the pulpit."
Ouch.
I looked her square in the eye and said, "Deborah, it'll never happen again. It will never happen again." And that's when I began to question some things. And that's when I started to realize that the love of God is more important than anything in the universe. The love of God is more important than it's more important than the topic of sin.
Amen.
It's more important than the topic of salvation even. The love of God is the end all, be all to everything.
Yeah.
And if people who claim Christ aren't going to exhibit that love, then who is?
Absolutely.
And that right there, that conversation that Deborah was bold enough to have with me, and I appreciated it.
Yeah.
I appreciated it then, and I appreciate it now. And it began to change my course. One of the things that I was such a stickler on was starting service on time when I first went there.
Me too, man. Well, I hated that.
I lived in
Culture wouldn't do it.
culture wouldn't do it. I lived in a village. I lived in a native village.
Yeah.
They're on village time.
Yeah.
I mean, I could start church at 10. I wouldn't have any musicians. I wouldn't have a congregation.
That would drive me so insane. I'm
At
so
first
type
it did.
A, man. I just
Yeah, at first it did. But I read a book by Raymond Culpepper before I moved. It was on evangelization. And I don't remember anything but this snippet from the book. He said, it's ridiculous to go into a culture and try to make that culture conform to your culture.
Yeah.
It's much simpler to go into a strange culture and conform to that culture.
yeah.
Yeah.
When in Rome.
Yeah, you went in Rome.
Well, you imagine bringing Northeast Oklahoma values and
Yeah.
way of doing things, way we do church, the way we believe, and all of that, and you're dropping it in the Arctic Circle.
Right. They don't care about my clock.
Yeah.
They don't care
Yeah,
what
these
time my
people
watch
hunt
says.
whales. Then these people are
Right.
hunting seals. I mean, they're
Right.
They don't know nothing about any of that.
Yeah.
They don't care about.
They don't
that
care
stuff.
about it.
And that's such a testament to the fact that, that everything has to be structured a certain way and be done a certain way. We got to be fluid
Yeah.
Yeah.
wherever we are, whoever we're dealing with.
Right.
The culture we're dealing with, the people we're dealing with. Cultures change from state to state,
They do.
and so you got to be fluid and just kind of, the job is to communicate the gospel.
Right.
That's the
The gospel,
job.
the gospel, the love of God.
Yeah.
The love of God. So while we were in Kotzebue, one of my daughters began to have some emotional issues, some very, very deep depression issues.
Was there sunlight issues?
There was.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't live far enough north for there to be an absolute 6 months of darkness and 6 months of light. It was more progressive.
Yeah.
But in the wintertime, the sun did not come above the horizon, not even a part of the arch.
Oh my
the
gosh.
glow of the sun come above the horizon for an hour and a half and then went back down.
That's
Remi-
horrible.
Reminds me when we went on a cruise and we stopped at. It rained all the time. I can't remember what place it was.
Down around Juneau, Ketchikan.
Had a lift that went all the way up to the top of the mountain.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, we stopped there and I asked a guy who was crossing the street. It was rainy, dreary, and I said, "How you like living here?" And he goes, "Everybody's clinically depressed." Oh,
Yeah.
have a nice day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that part of Alaska that we lived in, the suicide rate is quadruple what it is in the lower 48.
Wow.
The
Unbelievable.
The rape and the molestation rate off the charts.
All because of the lack of, not all because, but some to do with.
It contributes.
Yeah.
It contributes,
Lack of
but
sunlight.
alcohol also contributes, and depression is a huge part of it. And so when I got word that my daughter was struggling with depression, I made a decision that I was not going to let my daughter become a statistic.
Yeah.
There were people that were angry at me for the decisions I made. There were some people that were disappointed in the decisions I made. But on that day and today, I don't care. I
No.
still have my daughter.
Yeah,
I still
Yeah.
have my daughter.
absolutely.
And the most important thing was getting my daughter back to a familiar, safe place, closer to home.
And how dare they question that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, the people that questioned it the most were white people from the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were able to make a move from Kotzebue, Alaska to Arkansas City, Kansas. Spent 9 years in Arkansas City, Kansas as the pastor. Stephanie started out as an elementary school counselor in Ark City. Then she went to Winfield as a high school counselor. Then a position opened up in Ark City, and she spent the last 3 or 4 years in Ark City as a high school counselor. In Ark City, I think that I have so many thoughts, so many feelings about Ark City because about my time in Ark City because I really, really changed over that course of that 9 years. I came into a very, very traditional small church, and I immediately began making changes. I began right off the bat starting to modernize the church, modernize the services, modernize the amenities, the different things. I spent 2 years on the state youth board, then I was elected to the state council for 4 years straight, and then I come off the council and I didn't have to serve anywhere. During my time on the youth board is when I started getting a peek behind the curtain, as I've said, and I started seeing a lot of that politics, a lot of the denominational politics at work. Started seeing how how stories and situations could be manipulated and represented in order to carry out a purpose. And at first, I was really shocked and really upset. Well, not at first. I mean, I still am, because to me, the church and the community of the church, that stuff shouldn't be present. It shouldn't be going on. And then I got elected to the state council, and we talked a little bit about it last night. And there was a particular church in Kansas that we just kept pouring as a council, as a denomination, kept pouring thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into, when that church was never going to grow, was never going to change, because the former pastor who was deceased, his wife still was in that church and was still a power player. And when anybody new came in, anybody that could contribute to the church came in, she would run them off. So they ended up closing the church after we had thrown $50,000 into it. Instead of confronting somebody and saying, your behavior can't continue, this $50,000 doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
When I've got people in my church that are paying tithes, they're living on Social Security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their only income, and they are loyal to pay tithes into my church. And then I've got a tithe on that tithe into the denomination, and this is the way we're spending the money.
It's inexcusable.
It is inexcusable. When you've when you've got men on the council who attend a funeral in Cleveland, Tennessee, of a family member of the state overseer, the daughter of the state overseer, and then they want to turn in receipts to have their gas reimbursed to the state overseer for driving to his daughter's funeral.
Yeah.
What kind of mess is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff I saw.
Yeah.
And I got really, really bitter, really upset, and very angry. Then in 2021, I had an opportunity, I thought, to make some extra money. My wife was against it. My mom was against it. But I pushed. And I bought a house built in 1925, and I was going to remodel it and flip it. This was around the time COVID hit, I believe.
I remember that. I remember you going through that.
Yep. It was a house built in 1925. I was able to buy it for $25,000, and I thought that I could sell it for $75,000. Well, by the time I put all the money into it and did everything, I lost money. It was one of the worst mistakes I ever made in my life. It was a horrible financial decision, ruined my credit rating, and it cost me a lot more than that, because what happened during that time is my med specialist had diagnosed me with a binge eating disorder. And so she prescribed to me a drug called Vyvanse. Vyvanse is used to treat binge eating, and it's used to treat ADHD.
Right.
Essentially what Vyvanse is an a prescription methamphetamine. It's a prescription amphetamine. She assured me that studies had been done and that Vyvanse did not have the same effects, did not have the same side effects as methamphetamine, so that even as a former meth addict, I was safe. Okay? Started me out on 10 milligram, worked me up to 70 milligram. So my prescription was 70 milligrams of Vyvanse a day, one a day. Started getting behind on them on the house. So I started taking more Vyvanse because it was speed. I recognized speed immediately.
Yeah.
And so I started taking more and more. I was taking up to 5 70 milligram Vyvanses per day. I don't know if that's a lot or not.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot.
I mean, somebody can Google it. 350 milligrams of Vyvanse. Is that a lethal dose? Probably. But what I also found out is that Vyvanse caused my thinking to really regress. And I started making similar decisions that I did when I was strung out on methamphetamine.
Wow.
So there was one point in time where my son was living with us, and got behind on payments on his Jeep. We didn't know it. Two repo guys show up at our house at like 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night to repo. If somebody rings my doorbell that late at night, it better be an emergency. Somebody better be in need. And I opened my door to find a guy that says he's going to take my son's car in the middle of the night. I'm like, no. So with all of the stress that was already on me, I had already begun to make some really, really bad decisions that were detrimental to my ministry and were detrimental to my personal life. I wasn't thinking right. I physically attacked these two repo guys. I blacked out. The last thing I remember was grabbing one guy by the collar, throwing him on the ground, and piling up on him, beginning to hit him. The next thing I remember, I was on my back. I had my hand on one guy's throat, squeezing as hard as I could, and swinging over him, hitting the other guy.
Oh my gosh. That's for dramatic effect right there. Yeah.
Boom. So my son come out and he got me off the guys. The cops showed up. I was tried to fight. There was probably 6 or 8 cops, Ark City PD officers on my front lawn. And as soon as they showed up, I told them to leave. I said, "You get off my property, get off my land. You don't have any business being here." And they told me, "Well, a crime's been committed. We need to be here." And man, I was belligerent. I was aggressive toward them. I would watch their hands. When they started reaching for their taser, I would back down a little bit, and then I would build back up, and I would see them reach for their taser. Anyway, for some reason, I didn't go to jail that night, but I caught some charges. I don't remember what I was charged with, but I know it was 2 charges. So that was on a Wednesday night. I met with my counsel on Saturday, and I told them what happened. I said, I'm going to share with the church in the morning what happened.
Now, your counsel's like the local church board?
Yeah.
Okay.
My church and pastor's council, deacon board, whatever label you want to put on it.
Okay.
So I met with them. I told them what happened. I told them I'm going to share with the church in the morning what I did, and then I want to meet with you all on Monday, and I want us to decide how to go forward from this. So on Sunday morning, I shared with the church what had happened. On Monday, I met with the council. I was going to leave and let them discuss amongst themselves. So I left, and come to find out, my assistant pastor had already called the state overseer, went behind my back, called the state overseer. So they got the state overseer on the phone. The council met with the state overseer on the phone, over the phone, and I was suspended from my pastor, from being pastor, until the court case was finished. By the time the court case was finished, I had to write an apology letter to the police. I had to pay some fines and do like 6 months probation. This whole thing split the church because my assistant pastor, it upset me for one thing, because like I told you guys, if he would have just come to me and said, "Hey, I really feel like you need to make a call to the overseer. Let's just do this." Instead of going behind my back, not only behind my back, but he went to my cousin, who was my youth pastor, went to my cousin and his wife and had them on board with him. And like I said, it split the church.
So what did he think? He was going to be able to just step in as pastor or something?
I think he did.
Huh.
I think that he was trying to take the church.
Yeah.
But I threw such a fit, and I wouldn't just let it lie. The overseer eventually moved him to Coffeyville, and he pastored in Coffeyville. Now, as we talked about, probably a year later or so, he was arrested for raping his foster daughter, his 13-year-old foster daughter, and he's currently serving prison time for that. So,
Well, how did you feel like? So let me ask the question. So when you got suspended from pastoring, like, how'd you feel about that? Did you feel like this is fair? This is probably okay for right now, or did it make you angry?
it made me angrier. Of course, remember my thought, my thinking, my mind was not right.
Yeah.
It wasn't right. And looking back, and even if my thinking had been right, I would have been angry because I would have taken the suspension no problem had they given me the opportunity. If they'd have just talked to me and said, "Bucky, we really feel like you need to call the overseer."
It's just kind of the way that it all
happened.
The people close to you felt like they betrayed you.
Yeah. Right. If it would have been done all out in the open, if he wouldn't have gone behind my back to my youth pastor and got them on board and all of this sneaky stuff, I wouldn't have had my suspicions about him wanting to take the church. I wouldn't have been angry. I wouldn't have been upset. And everything would have gone down much, much more peacefully.
So it's not really. So you're not so much angry that you had to step down, but kind of the progression of how it took place and the way that people acted and the way
Exactly. I owned what I did.
Yeah.
I'm the type of guy, I've never had a problem owning my wrong. I'll own it, and I'll serve. I'll do my penance. I don't have a problem with that. But don't be underhanded. Don't be sneaky. Don't be a shadow figure.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that's cowardice too. Like I think it's cowardice for a guy that's easier for him to make that private phone call than it is to just come to you and say, Bucky, I think that we really need to, do this or do this.
Right.
Because people don't like that, don't want that confrontation.
Right. So at this time, I'm suspended until the court case is finished. Court case gets finished. These mistakes that I made, and I'm being very vague because I'm not ready to talk about these mistakes publicly. I'm not prepared to give these details. But these mistakes that I made was a series of continuous mistakes where I ended up having to resign as pastor, and I had to surrender my license. At that point in time, when I had to surrender my license and I had to resign from the church, we had no choice but to stay in Ark City until June because Stephanie had a contract with the high school, with the school district. So we were still stuck in town for another 4 months after all of this.
Tough.
Right.
That
It was tough.
Small town,
Yep.
gossip. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, where do you go?
Right.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right.
Can't even go to the store, not run into somebody who knows.
Right. And my wife working in the high school, my daughter's working at the public library.
And you know how stories go.
Yep.
They get bigger
Right.
and more,
Right.
So at some point, it ain't even the real truth no more. Yeah.
Exactly. And so during this time, when we were making plans to leave Ark City and get through this next 4 months that we were going to have to stay there, it was a very, very, very difficult time. I felt abandoned. I feel like that. I felt like that the people had turned their backs on me because I made my mistakes. And what really hurt me was there was people in my church who had made the same mistakes that I had made, and I'd never turn my back on them.
Yeah.
They made the same mistakes I made, and they made worse mistakes, and they made different mistakes. And all of those people that I pastored that made these mistakes, I did nothing but work through healing and restoration with them side by side, hand in hand. And some of these same people turned their back on me. Some of these same people slanderized me. Some of these same people just crucified me on social media. And all of that just piled on this anger and this bitterness that I was already having. Now, at the end of December of 2021, I stopped taking the pills. When all this stuff came crashing down, I stopped taking the pills. And so by the time February rolls around, and all of this stuff comes to light and becomes public, my thinking is much straighter. But now I'm feeling the abandonment. Now I'm feeling the loneliness, and my wife and my kids are feeling the estrangement in the community and in the church.
Is there a little bit of I know, like meth, there's a little bit of a dopamine crash.
Yeah.
Is it like that with the Vyvanse too? I mean,
Yeah. So
there's a lot of you're already feeling kind of.
Yep. Yeah. And for me, it kind of manifests as depression.
Yeah.
And after all of this stuff come to light in February of 2021, I became very susceptible to depression, and I was actually suicidal for the next year and a half.
Wow.
I couldn't live. I couldn't live because I had put for 11 years as a pastor. I had sunk everything that I was into being the absolute best pastor that I could be. I was sincere and I did the best that I could, and I never wanted anybody to be able to say that I half-assed anything, anywhere, anytime. If they were talking about me as a pastor, I always wanted people to say, we know that he was doing his best. And it was my identity, and I clung to it. My entire being was wrapped up in being a pastor. And when I brought about the destruction, I destroyed it. I destroyed myself. I destroyed my ministry, and I owned that. But for the next year and a half, I couldn't live with it. I couldn't live, and I'll be honest on the podcast. I drink to self-medicate a lot of times.
Yeah.
I drink because sometimes I can't handle the way I still feel, even 4 years later. Well, shoot, we're 5 years later now. Even 5 years later, I still have to overindulge in whiskey to not feel so guilty, so depressed, because I still don't know who I am
Wow.
without being a pastor. Right now, I run a warehouse for a natural gas compression company. I'm a parts guy in natural gas. That's not who I am. It pays good and it has good financial benefits and perks, but I'm not a material handler. That's not my identity.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it?
It is tough.
Yeah, I feel that.
Mhm.
You know, when your
Yeah.
whole identity is wrapped up in, it's not even a vocation. It's not just
Right.
a vocation. It's like who you are.
It's a life. It's an
Yeah.
identity.
And your wife too. I mean,
Yeah.
struggles her identity too.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, over the past 5 years, at this point now, our marriage is better than it's ever been. I can legitimately and honestly say that Stephanie is my best friend in the entire world right now. And ministry had a very negative impact on our marriage. And one of the reasons it did is because we're both such alphas.
Mm-hmm.
She's alpha, I'm alpha. Her ideas are best and my ideas are best. Her way is the best way, my way is the best way.
Yeah. But ministry overall is just traumatic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the journey that we've all been on, I mean, what I've, Mark, what I've heard you say and what I'm, what we've been listening to you, you've gone through a lot of trauma in ministry, in relatively a short period of time of your life.
half the time that Mark.
Yeah.
I was thinking when we were recording his episode, he spent 22 years as a pastor. I spent 11.
Yeah.
The crazy thing I've been thinking about is, David in the Bible sinned, very dramatic, very open, very public,
Yeah.
made public sin, and he had to pay the consequences of that.
Right.
But God didn't remove him from king.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, like Saul was,
Yeah.
for his pride, Saul was removed,
Yeah.
and his whole lineage. But David not, because why? Because David had a sincere heart to love God, and I'm sorry. I think it was because David was quick to say, "Man, I'm sorry, I goofed up."
Yeah.
And, that was what made him a man after God's heart, is because he recognized. But there was no I'm sure there was probably a lot of people who was like, off with his head, or
Sure.
let's tear him
Yeah.
down. He don't need to be king no more.
Yeah.
But God never changed his calling from king to
Right.
all right, let's get somebody else in there.
Right.
Have you ever thought about that? About how he didn't, God didn't remove his calling.
Right.
He's still king.
Right. Yeah, and people, I have several. I don't want to say everybody, but I have a lot of people, several people, that still encourage me and tell me, we want you to be a pastor. I think that if I was to get my license back, I could get a majority vote in Ark City still. I've had people tell me that we want you to come back, but the fact of the matter is, I won't. I can't.
Do you think, is there anything in you at all that desires that, to be a pastor again?
I don't know, because I think, okay, you've challenged me with that question.
You challenged me with that question.
Dishing it right back at you.
Most of the time, I think I keep it so blanketed with shame and guilt and hurt and anger and bitterness that I don't recognize it. But if I were to be completely honest with you, if I could ever get past those things, I would say it's not outside the realm of possibility that I would have that desire.
You still have those sermon ideas pop in your mind,
All day today.
and you still love people.
Oh, yeah.
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 I want to
But-
help people.
But at the same time, I still love people. I still want to help people. But at the same time, I intentionally remind myself of every time I was stabbed in the back in those 11 years of pastoring by somebody that I went out of my way to help.
Yeah.
That old saying that says no good deed goes unpunished is the absolute truth. And so what you see here is this bitterness and this anger fighting against that inclination, that quote unquote pastoral inclination that I still have to love and care for people. But at the same time, I'm telling myself, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you're not. because they're going to do nothing but stab you in the back because it's happened so many times.
Yeah.
Why is it going to be any different?
You think that when
Yeah.
Jesus healed the 10 lepers and only the one came back, that was the one enough?
Right.
Was the other 9 like, come on, there's 10 of you guys,
Yeah.
and only one came back? What about the one
Yeah.
that you had that eternal, change because of your leadership and mentorship?
I can appreciate that. I can, and even now, even still 5 years later, the support and the love that people continue to show me, it astounds me. And what I have found, this is what I've learned. This is the God honest truth. I am very well cared for. I'm very well loved by people, except me. Except me. I like myself less than anybody in this world. And it's hard. And I struggled with that when I was pastoring. I mean, I'm sure you did. I mean, we knew when we made mistakes, and I would beat myself up over a mistake. If I felt like I preached too harshly from the pulpit, I'd go home and I'd just spend the rest of the afternoon in bed because I had a tendency to be harsh sometimes.
My own worst, I was always my own worst critic.
Oh yeah,
If one person was upset at me, ate at
yeah.
me. Just ate at me.
I didn't want people to be upset with me. I didn't want people to be angry with me. But at the same time, there were times when I had to present very harsh, very real, very hard truths, and I didn't back down from it. And sometimes I had to bring discipline at different times, and people got upset about that. And there was times people got upset because I didn't bring discipline. So
Make them all happy.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say that God's not done with you. It may not look like it did, and that's the whole point of all this, that there's a story to be told and people still to help and people still to love. God's not done with you.
I keep hearing that, but once again, that bitterness and that anger and that cynic in me says, God may not be done with me, but I am.
Well, maybe it just don't look.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look like it did
Right.
look. It can be a completely different. It could be like telling your story.
Yeah.
Like you are now.
Yeah.
That can help someone else.
And you're going down a journey right now, and whether it's through this podcast, whether it's through your life right now, through just the fact you was just mentioning that you and your wife are on the best of terms you've ever been on. Mm-hmm. All of those things coming together to create a journey for you to have a path to forgiving yourself. Mm-hmm. And that forgiveness to yourself doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It's a path, and it's a path that only you can walk. And at the end of that path, there's reward, but you just don't know what life is going to be like once you get there.
Sure. Until
you get there.
Sure.
But maybe these conversations we're going to be having are part of that.
I mean, now they know a part of you, but they still don't know you.
Right.
Like, don't judge from the outside and think you know a person because of you don't know what they've been through. You don't know the struggle. You don't know what's in their heart.
Right.
I mean, if we loved as much as we opened our mouths and talked, I mean.
The world would be different.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
You talking about, going back, would you consider that, would the denomination that you were a part of be a part of that?
No. If I was ever able to go back into any type of ministry at all, I would not affiliate with any denomination whatsoever. Mm-hmm. After what I've seen and after what I've experienced, I am completely anti-denominational.
Yeah.
I feel like denominational, quote unquote, Christianity is the complete antithesis of what Jesus intended his church to be. Mm-hmm. And I've said it, I've posted on social media, I've said it. Organizational, denominational Christianity is nothing but big business.
Yeah.
It's bureaucracy. That's all it is. And if you don't believe that, all you got to do is look at financial reports. Look at what the salaries that the executive, and I can't speak to Assembly of God, but I can speak to Church of God. Look at the salaries that the executive committee members are on. Look at how many first class plane tickets they fly on.
Oh yeah.
Look, and then look at the local church and see how many local churches are struggling to pay their bills.
Yeah.
How many churches are how many men and women are on Social Security faithful to pay their tithe so that the church can pay their tithes so that the general overseer can make sure that he makes his day star appearance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or make sure that they can spend the thousands or millions of dollars on General Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But how many stories have you heard over the years? Yours unlike yours, just like others, that you were in a time of your life you needed the denomination to be what that denomination was supposed to be, covering and support for their pastors, covering and support for their membership. Where were they to be found? And it's not just your story; it's other people saying the same thing. I've got family that's been in that same situation. That, oh well, so what? You can't be a pastor in our organization anymore.
Right. Do you ever feel guilty for being a financial strain on your people? I have as a pastor. I felt guilty. Looking back, I think, man, I just feel guilty for being a financial strain, like a salary that, and being concerned about a salary. It sucks that money even has to be involved.
It does.
It just really does.
But you're right.
Yeah. So.
I did feel like that. And it was like a double-edged sword, because I had to provide for my family. I had to make a living, provide for my family. And the church wanted a full-time pastor. They wanted to pay a full-time pastor. That was their choice, and they wouldn't have been content with a part-time or half-time pastor.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. And I had to provide for my family. But at the same time, then I've got to make sure that mortgage is paid. I've got to make sure all the insurance for the church is paid. I've got to make sure that all the bills are paid. And I just, so many times I thought, if we didn't have all this overhead, how much more good could we do for the community?
I know, right?
With this money?
My last church in Texas, we was paying $1,200 a month in insurance.
Just in insurance.
Just in insurance.
Yeah,
people don't understand.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and your church's tithing and the giving is doing nothing but just keeping the doors open to the building.
Exactly.
It's not doing anything to help the community.
Exactly.
And then when you're standing up telling them, because giving people the opportunity to give, and that there's, your most faithful givers are those, God bless those aged saints who are tithing on their Social Security checks. I had a lady in my church in Texas, and she would give me like a $2 bill. And she'd say, Pastor, I just want you to know I love you. I wish there was something more I could give you. Or she'd bring me some bananas or something like that. And I just thought, man, those are like the two mites,
Yeah.
They're just such a precious gift. And how do you ask for more, from them? It's tough.
Yeah, we've got to buy an LED wall. We've got to put in a new PA system. And,
And I've been guilty of, guilty of it. I just... Like that's why I said, you can join my front room church. And I just think if I could just have a group of people sit around like a big AA group and talk about God and hug each other and help each other. I went to this is not my story time, but I went to an NA group with my son.
NA or AA?
NA.
Okay.
I went to an NA group with my son, and he didn't want to go by himself. I was like, I'll go. And I was just intrigued by just the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And in the end, they all get in a circle. Or if one person starts talking about, man, I messed up big. And they're like, better than that. And then the rest of them, you can do it, though. We're going to do this. They were just so encouraging. And I thought, wow, that's...
Yeah.
Why can't church be more like that?
Right.
Where it's like, come on in and just be honest and tell us your failures and we'll encourage you. And But most of the time, it's like, I can't tell them about that. They'll crucify me.
My pastor said something from the pulpit many, many years ago, before I ever went out into ministry. He said that the church will swim across the ocean together, but if one of the members gets hurt, we'll leave them for the sharks.
Wow. That's hard.
That's a whole nother podcast right there.
It is a whole other podcast.
So what's next for you, Bucky?
What's next for me? We're moving back to Oklahoma in July.
Back to the holler.
Yeehaw.
Man, if I could find a hauler to buy, I'd buy it. I want my own hauler. We're going back to Oklahoma to put roots down. Stephanie and I have been nomadic for long enough. We're still going to travel as a hobby, but we're going to live back home in Oklahoma. We're going to be closer to our family, to our parents. Stephanie's got a couple job opportunities in different schools back home. I've got a couple of different companies that I'm going to go back to welding for. Hopefully, it won't take me long to work myself into a supervisor position. I got about 15 years left in the workforce before I can retire, so I'm going to do it.
Rock on, man.
Yep, and see where this podcast goes.
Yeah.
See if we get canceled or see if we blow
Hey,
up.
we'll get canceled together.
It's been therapy for me. Just I mean, I don't know. It's just I'm a crier, I guess, but it's just really been touching my heart just to have these conversations. It's great.
To have guys that you can have these conversations with, and we've turned on the cameras and turned on the mics to let other people in on it because we know they need it too.
Yep.
Glad you're part of the ride.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm glad. I'm glad to be together with the two of you
On the back row.
on the back row.
On the back row.
We're trying to get revived on the back row.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Bucky Sitsler.
We'll see you next time.